welcome to another episode of Muay Thai Saved Me. Guys, my name is Kru Neil, and I have a special guest for you today, guys. If you're in the Muay Thai community, you know this name, Jeff Dojillo. He's a very famous photographer for the Muay Thai circuit. He's worked with so many, professional top elite athlete fighters. And so I'm really pleased to have him on the show today. Jeff, thank you so much for hanging out with me.
Yeah,
I appreciate it. And it was funny, we were talking like how we've known of each other for so many years in the community, but we've never had a chance to really meet until now.
Yeah.
So I'm really pleased to finally meet you, Jeff.
Pleasure's mine. Thank you for inviting me to your space. It's really a beautiful gym. If you guys haven't seen the gym, to check it out. And
thank you, Jeff.
It's really nice to finally meet you. Yeah.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you. And for people that are just tuning in, Muay Thai Saved Me. It's like I like to bring on different guests that share how Muay Thai has impacted their life in a great way. And with that said, I want to kind of ask you, Jeff, what got you into Muay Thai?
Well, for a long story, to make it a long story short, it was Bloodsport, the movie.
Ooh, okay.
I used to live in the IE area, Rancho Cucamonga, and
oh my gosh.
I would look in the yellow pages for Muay Thai, and I could never find it.
Okay.
Until one day, I found a Muay Thai gym in Upland, and it happened to be run by Dobler.
Wow.
Brian Dobler.
Yes.
And I was in I was like maybe a freshman junior high school.
Okay.
And I did it for maybe 2-3 weeks, loved it, but my mind frame wasn't really into Muay Thai. I was still a kid, into video games, girls, all that stuff. I was still trying to get older, but I told myself when I get older, I'm gonna get back to Muay Thai when I find it.
Nice.
Fast forward to my senior year in college at San Diego State. I was in the most terrible shape I could ever been. As a college student, you really take care of yourself. You're smoking, you're drinking, eating double cheeseburgers for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Yeah.
And I went through a terrible breakup, right? Okay. Like I was with a woman for 6 years, and we broke up, and I didn't know what to do. So I found a Muay Thai gym in San Diego called Boxing Club that was ran by Melchor Menor at the time. Good friend of mine, Kane Gale, who was my coach, who was the real reason I started loving Muay Thai. He had a really amazing teaching style that applied to my learning style.
Nice.
I would apply and learn, and I made the gym my girlfriend. And after that, it was just everything became Muay Thai while I was getting my art degree.
Okay.
So I had two separate lanes. One was school and art, and one was just Muay Thai because I loved it.
Okay.
And after that, I got deep into the culture of Muay Thai because it was a Buddhist sport, and I started watching K1 and all that stuff, and then I loved that so much. But I always wanted to fight, but I had to choose school or fighting because one was gonna take the other.
Absolutely.
Either I'm gonna get knocked out because I'm going to school, or I'm gonna get Fs.
Yeah.
Like I understand how the fight game is. You give it your all, or you're gonna go to sleep.
Exactly.
By the time I graduated, I was at the advanced level of the boxing club, the fight team.
Okay.
But I wanted to get my graduate degree in photography because I wanted to teach as a professor. So I went to San Francisco and I started training with Jungsonon and Ganya at Fairtex when they still had a beautiful facility. Yeah. So my routine was I'd wake up in the morning, take their classes, take a shower, go to school. And I did that every day, and I learned so much from Jungsonon and Ganyao and Fairtex. And then I graduated from San Francisco. I wanted to start my career in LA. So in 2010, I came back to LA. I started interning for high caliber photographers, fine artists. And then Jungsonon told me, hey, I got a couple guys fighting in LA. Why don't you come hang out? And I think that was 2010. Well, I have to rewind a little bit because my senior year, I wanted to treat myself for my birthday. So I flew to Thailand. And I went to Fairtex Bang Pli, and I brought a camera with me. And I wanted to shoot Muay Thai. I've never shot Muay Thai in my life.
Oh, shoot.
I did, and back then there was, we were talking about, there was no Instagram, Facebook, or even emails for these people. So back then there were forums, A1 Kickboxing, where everyone would talk shit. Am I allowed to curse on this?
Yeah, absolutely.
But they were talking, people all over would talk shit to each other. And there was a man named Rob Cox, who was this international journalist for Muay Thai. He was probably a British gentleman who has been documenting the sport of Muay Thai when Shortani Kun and all of them were still fighting when Jungsonon was still there. I reached out to him and he's like, hey, I have a friend named Won Song Chai. You should send him an email and see if he could let you come and check out some fights. Wow. I sent him an email and I met Song Chai Jr., who was throwing these crazy events in Thailand. So when I was in Fairtex, he invited me to a Channel 7 show or a Channel 8 show, I forgot. And then I photographed his event, and it was like the very first time I ever shot Muay Thai was at Channel 7. And then he was like, "Oh, I have a bigger show at a place called Raja Damner." I was like, "Would you like to come and photograph?" I was like, "Oh my God, sure."
Yeah.
So a couple days later, I go take a taxi to Raja. He meets me outside, and he just introduces me to all of the Thai photographers. And I'm taking pictures of everyone, and I meet people like Sanchez, Sanctinoy, and I didn't know who they were at first, right? Because I'm still fairly new to this Muay Thai thing. I'm meeting legends, and then it was crazy because the main event was like Pakorn, and I saw Bovi on the undercard too. So there was a time where like cultural shock for me, mind blown.
Yeah.
And then I
Those are
created
some great names that you got to witness. I love that.
And it was a time where I was still shooting a lot of film, and I shot like a bunch of like kind of not really fights, but it was more about the culture of Muay Thai as a foreigner looking at it, right?
Okay.
Because I also experienced like Temperset Stadium in Pattaya, where it's like really low level fights where it's kind of like they don't really care what you ate. You get smashed out, you get bet against by your own fucking team. So I saw like the really kind of dirty, low style of Muay Thai and the most prestigious. So that really showed me like the dynamics of Muay Thai in Thailand. Like people fight for a living versus America's like we're fighting for our pride because it's a hobby.
As a hobby.
So there's people that, you know, will take fights whether they're mismatched or not because it's money. So I come back to America, and the work that I did there earned me honorable mention by the International Photography Awards. For those that don't know the International Photography Awards, that's like the Oscars of photography. For me to get just an honorable mention is such a blessing. I'm grateful to all the people there.
That's awesome.
So fast forward back to when Jungsan said he had 10 guys. It happened to be a WMC show back then.
Wow.
And the first person I meet is Paulo Tocha from Bloodsport. And I'm like, holy crap, right? Is this Paco from Bloodsport?
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm hella gassed out. I'm like, oh my God, man, you're the reason why I do this, blah, blah. I'm like, give him hugs and shit. And I had a camera with me. And back then, there was no one taking pictures of the weigh-ins. Talking about people had point and shoots.
Yeah.
I remember Gary Finnerty taking pictures with a little point and shoot camera.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm standing there with what was like one of the hottest cameras back then, a 5D Mark II, because it was like a full frame for the first time. I was like, hey man, my name's Jeff. If you let me shoot your fight, shoot the weigh-ins, will you let me shoot the fights ringside? I'd love to do it. And then they were like, yeah, sure. You're Jungsan's friends. Then I went and I ended up shooting the WMC fight. I see people like Coke Chunwat and Roxy Richardson, you know, like a lot of the local acts fighting. I remember Jason Andrade from Las Vegas came. And then I met a kid named Jesse Magnuson. And then I found out his coach was Dobler. So it all folded back to when I was like a kid. Like I went up to Dobler, like, excuse me, sir, do you remember me? He's like, Dobler style, maybe. You know, I'm like, I was your student in Upland. He's like, oh yeah, blah, 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 blah. Gave me hugs. And then after that, I was walking the crowd because I like to shoot more than the fights.
Okay.
And I get a flyer handed to me. And I see it's Sanchai versus Tetsuya Yamato. I'm like, what the fuck is happening here, right? This is my first fight. And I look at the person handing it to me, it's David Huerta. And I'm like, who's throwing this fight? And he pointed at a Thai gentleman sitting down. It was Manchi Suparnik. And I went up to Manchi. I was like, sir, I would love to photograph your show. How can I share my work with you? And then he points at David. I'll give David your information. So I gave David my card at the time.
Okay.
After that, I got an email from David saying that I was approved to shoot the fights. I shot the fights, and that was such an amazing event because I saw people from Team Oyama, you know, like learning there's people from Orange County fighting and cats from Japan fighting. And that led to me getting invited to other MTA shows. And because there weren't really many photographers during my generation of shooting.
That is true.
You know, like there weren't really many like high caliber guys shooting it. So I was probably one of the first handful of guys to really do it in a certain way where I was able to spread it out through Facebook at that time. And I think that's how it really all started for me. After that, it was just kind of snowballed after that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's a great story.
Thank you.
And then for people that don't know, I mean, like I remember the game has changed so much with the photography and the videography.
For sure.
So I totally know, like you could be considered one of the pioneers of this because people started following your footsteps. You know, more people want to start filming fights and, you know, doing behind the scenes stuff,
Yeah.
right? Weigh-ins, face-offs, and
Yeah.
no more of that. What'd you call it? The catch and
The
shoot.
point and shoots.
Point and shoot.
Yeah.
There you go.
But you know, I'm very humbled by saying I'm a pioneer because, you know, one, it's hard for me to take compliments that way because I don't want to be like a gatekeeper for anything.
Mm.
I never wanted to shoot the fights.
Yeah.
I just wanted a great seat to watch them.
Oh.
You know what I mean? Like I never wanted to be a sports photographer.
Yeah.
I was a fine artist.
Uh-huh.
So when I got to shoot the fights, I was like, man, I have the best seat in the house. I happened to be good at it, you know? And then now, you know, into my later years as a creative, I stopped shooting the fights.
Okay.
Because I'm like...
Did you just lose interest, or?
There's a point in time where like, I'm not enjoying it.
Really?
I really want to just watch the fights with my friends and sit there and be like, wow, and absorb it versus me looking through a camera lens, trying to get the knockout shot. It didn't necessarily ruin it for me, but that's not the experience I wanted with Thai boxing. Plus, like, I've done that all, right? Like, not to say I did everything, but I felt like I've done enough. I've shot things like Glory to K1 to Lion Fights to the MTAAs to One Championship. I want the next generation of photographers to do what I did. Take Muay Thai, make it there. Shoot the fight. Show me something different, man.
Yeah.
I support all the new photographers shooting fights. From the women shooting the fights now to young men shooting fights and doing behind the scenes stuff. Like, I love that. So now it's like, you know, let the next generation of photographers make it their own and make it beautiful like me and my friends did at that time.
I love that.
So, but I appreciate being considered a pioneer because, yeah, there was no one doing it at that time, but that doesn't mean no one else could have done it. I was just the first one to push the ball forward. Now there's a lot of people. Gyms are doing it themselves now, and for them
we're one of them.
Yeah, and for anybody to say they were inspired by me, it just means the world to me because my legacy lives with the people I inspire. You know, so like if a gym says, "Oh, I saw Jeff's work with the inside the fight stuff he did with Kevin, Joe, and Romy," that made me want to do video. Well, damn, I'm sorry. That makes me so happy. That means my legacy will live through them, and that means a lot, you know?
I love that. And then now, present day, what's your role? Do you still go to fights? Do you still like kind of, are you a huge fan still? Do you still like to be present for the fights?
Well,
do you miss shooting? Do you know?
I think right now, I will always be a fan of Thai boxing, right? Thai boxing has changed a lot over the years where, you know, as Westerners, we'd only get a handful of names that would make it to Western audience, like, oh, like, you know, Yods and Klein, them, like we were talking about, or Anawat, or, you know, Tanunchai. Now we have social media having free shows that the depth of Muay Thai is so huge. So I try to pay attention to the Roger shows. I watch one shows. And whenever there's a local show that I see good matchups on, I'll shoot Walter's show because I've known Walter for a long time, and I saw that he did on a battleship. I was like, that's cool. I want to do that, right? I want to shoot that. And then I saw what they're trying to do. They're trying to make a promotion that's different from what's already existing. And I want to be a part of things like that because I know I could make it my own, right? I'm into making it my own.
I love that.
So I have conversations with June and Walter about like, hey, I'll nudge things like, have you ever thought of a media day where you invite everyone and kind of take the document them and use that as social media? Have you thought about interviewing the athletes that are the main events or having people send you footage so you could, you know, things of that? Because there needs to be an alternative to what's happening in California. Because when I started shooting and when you were still partially involved in stuff, there was a solid pro scene. There was a lot of pro men fighting here. We had like people like Bryce Krause, Joe. We had Kevin coming out. We had people from New York coming in, fighting and actually getting paid to fight professionally in California. Now, if you turn pro in California, your career is almost fucking over.
Right.
You have to go to New York to fight pro. And that's a lot of the politics that happens in Muay Thai, but that doesn't mean it can't happen. It's just money. So with Walter's show, I feel like with me involved and me being involved, I can help him take it to a different level than what's already existing here, than Cali One and WCK, because they already have their kind of genre and demographics that they play to. Right now, like Walter's show was at a battleship. Walter's last show was at an amazing studio. versus, you know, the casinos versus commerce that are reused. It's a different experience for the fans.
True.
And with my work being added to that, I want to give that a different experience to the people there as well. If that makes any sense.
It does. I love that though, Jeff.
Thanks.
So great. Oh my gosh. If somebody were to be listening into this episode and maybe they're an aspiring videographer, maybe they're an aspiring photographer, what advice would you want to give to them?
If anyone listening to this episode wants to learn any advice about shooting this sport or photography in general, is that if your photos suck is because you're not close enough to it. Meaning you don't have a relationship to the subject matter, the sport, or the people you're trying to document. What I mean is, do you know how the sport is scored? Do you know what the fighting techniques are? Do you know what each weapon is? Do you know what the white crew is, where it came from? Do you know where this gym started? Do you know who's the coach and owner? Do you know why this kid is fighting? When you know those things, your photos will change because you'll know so much about the subject matter that'll be authentic to you as an artist.
Wow.
Does that make sense? Yeah. Versus me coming out to a punk rock show, never listening to punk rock, trying to shoot a band and trying to shoot the culture of the mosh pits. It will be unauthentic. Take your time and watch. Take your time and ask questions.
Wow.
And why makes that important, and it'll show in your work. That's why I have such a deep love for Muay Thai, because one, I've trained for many years. Second, I've been a part of amazing fight camps, blessed to be involved and just take part in just watching fight camps. And I've seen people at high levels lose and win.
Yeah.
And that makes it different from my point of view. And another thing is, if you're shooting a genre, say whether it's music or sports or car races, find inspiration outside of those sports from other photographers and bring it into your own. For me, no disrespect to any other photographers in Muay Thai, but none of them have inspired me, because I look outside. I look at fashion photographers. I look at street photographers like a Stefan Oriol. I look at documentary photographers like Mary Ellen Mark, fine artists that influence my style, that makes my work look different in Thai boxing.
I love that.
Does that make sense?
I love that. Jeff, that's so cool.
Thanks. Yeah.
And then with that said, if anyone wants to get a hold of you, where can they find you on Instagram? What's your Instagram handle?
My Instagram handle is at Jeff, DOJILLO.com. And my website is just my last name, DOJILLO.com. That's where you're going to find my expanse of all my work. I have galleries of Muay Thai ranging from 2001 to 2024. Stuff I've done with Red Bull, stuff I've shot with other boxers, Western boxers, super rare, and like a lot of lifestyle fashion stuff. So that's where I kind of also see my work moving toward, is still combat sports, but more sports lifestyle stuff.
I love that.
Because I've always been inspired by streetwear in LA, because I grew up here in LA. And a kid from the 90s, it was hip hop, graffiti, rap, you know, and even gang culture. At one point, we were surrounded by it, whether we liked it or not. So that influenced a lot of like the taste that I have in my work.
I love that. And then are you still, like, can people still hire you, like if they need a good photographer? So guys, you heard it. You heard his Instagram. Can we hear the Instagram handle one more time?
It's at Jeff, JEFFDOJILLO.
And then website is lastname.com.
Yeah.
Guys, thank you again for hanging out with us. Jeff, thank you for hanging out with me today.
It was a pleasure.
I appreciate it. And like, I love getting to finally meet you in person and actually getting to speak. And thank you so much for sharing your story. I always say this show is worth it if it just touches one person and inspires them to change their life. I'm all about it.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This was great. I appreciate your time again.
Of course. Thank you, Jeff. So guys, you heard it, This concludes another episode of Muay Thai Save Me. Just remember, if it's your first time tuning in, know that I like to bring on guests that share their story about how Muay Thai has impacted their life in a great way. But with that said, if you like any of this content, any of the videos, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and stay tuned for next time.